Welcome to this edition of Saddler Sessions, brought to us by the Whirlpool. And our special guest is Glen, three-time Melbourne Cup winner. What a life, what a career he's enjoyed, Bossy. From death's door in Macau in 2002 to winning his first Melbourne Cup on the Diva in 2003. He's done everything in between, Bossy. He shares his story with us right here on Saddler Sessions. Glen Bossy, thanks for joining the Saddler Sessions. How are you, mate?
Mate, I'm great. I've been waiting to get on here. We've been trying to link up our times together, but absolute pleasure. Good to see you, Ed.
You're looking very well, Bossy. How's life in retirement?
Mate, it's been good. It's had its challenges, when you've sort of been like a sports person and you've been at a good level pretty well most of your life and, experienced all those highs. It was kind of, I'd been thinking about retirement, I'd say 12 months before I actually did it. It's kind of, I was 51 going on to 52. And the year before I had an incredible season, Ed. My horses won $25 million in prize money, winning all those races. But I could feel the transition coming and I didn't want to be that guy kicking around, fluffing around for 2 or 3 years when I should have done it 2 years earlier and been that bloke, look at Bossy, look at the old Bossies, you know what I mean?
You didn't want to be punching around the provincials on a Saturday.
I didn't want to be that person that everyone said, he should be out of the game. I wanted to go out on my terms and so I kind of went out when I was airborne but I could feel it coming. And I didn't feel like I had another year in me. So then I just decided that was it.
So you decided that was it. You had a great send-off, I thought, at Caulfield, and then like all good rock stars, you had an encore performance in Saudi. But when it's done, Bossy, after it's been part of your life for 35 years, and we'll talk through that, but when it is said and done, what's it like when you get off the horse for the last time and that's it? You're no longer a jockey.
It took a while to sink in. Like I said, you had to know, I retired here in the spring. We had a great send-off at Caulfield, and that was very emotional. I got very high for that moment. And then all of a sudden, Saudi called me, and after I'd done it, and they said, "Would you come over in February?" So I had 2 months in between. Like I said, like John Farnham maybe come back for one more. And when it was all said and done, finished at Saudi, that was kind of like a party atmosphere. I ended up riding a winner over there, and there was a month or so after it, Ed, and I thought I really tossed and turned because I felt like I rode really well over there, and I rode a winner, and it just felt normal. And it was, the first 6 months was a real hard struggle for me because I thought, well, there was all those moments. You're having dreams. Did I do this? Did the right thing? Have I done this? And then you have a moment. Yeah, of course I've done the right thing. Blah blah blah. And I was very fortunate that I fell into this role that I've got with Antone and Ladbrokes. I think without having them in my corner, I would have struggled for a lot longer.
What is it about the role that you enjoy most, the media side of things, looking at racing from a different lens, really?
Yeah, there was a lot of things that happened in that time, Ed. What I did realise, when I stopped riding, there was a couple of things that happened. The phone stopped very quickly. No one rings. And which I fully understand. Everyone's busy in our game and they're getting on with their lives. But the phone just stopped very quickly, and you are not important anymore in anyone's, that's fine. That's just that's reality and that's life. And that's a bit of a readjustment as well. Then I realised once I got out of the game, I actually realised how small our industry is into the greater public. No one really cares about racing. It's so small. But when you're in it, you think it's so big and powerful and it's all this mighty thing. But like when you're going to golf on a Saturday and other than people who recognise you, no one's talking about racing. No one's looking at racing hardly, especially the younger generation. So those things I kind of realised. And then, looking through the lens in a different way, it was quite an adjustment for me. But, it's very funny to look back at your sport when you stepped away from that bubble.
So when you step away from that bubble and you see how small racing is that a good thing in that you see the bigger picture of what life is like, or are you thinking racing needs to work here to be a bigger industry?
Well, it's twofold. What it did, it allowed me to step away and just become a normal person. I'll go to golf on a Saturday and people ask me for a tip or what. I'll go, mate, I don't even know where they're racing today. I'm not a punter, right? I've never been a punter my whole life, and I'm still not a punter. So it just, that kind of side had never, ever come into my mindset. So I'll go, like I said, on a Wednesday if I'm playing golf with mates or whatever and we're doing something, I won't even know where the races are on. So that was, I mean, but just when you're just generally around people and you're meeting different people now. I'm meeting different people outside of the racing and a lot of them are asking, they don't know who I am, which is such a cool thing, right? But yeah, like I said, they're probably, I think, is in a decline. That's what I believe. It's in a slow decline. And we have to, when you look at other sports and what they're doing, I think we've got to really pivot and adjust and go in different directions to keep up with what other sports are doing. And you need the participants in your sport to buy into that as well.
Which you did, I always thought, as a jockey, Bossy.
Oh, yeah, I sold my game. I sold it as much as I could. Listen, my boss, Kay Tinsley in the Gold Coast, who just passed recently, a great man, he instilled in me a few things. He said, mate, he told me from the start, listen, you're an entertainer. People are going to the races they're buying a ticket, they're going to the races, they're having a bet, they're having a go. They want to be entertained. They will actually need something to say, listen, what about that boss? He's mad after he rides a winner. Give him something to talk about. So I always had that in my mind. So from an early age, I was interacting with the crowd, good or bad, and I really tried to sell my sport. I think, when I look at Craig Williams as a great ambassador for our sport, and I don't think there's anyone in the game that's selling the game like him. I was that person. I was like Craig, very positive about our game, trying to educate people about our sport, about how horses are looked after, all those little things. I think I did that pretty well, but like I said, more people have got to buy into that and really get our sport out to just not the people in our media, but our broader community,
You touch on the Gold Coast. That's a nice little segue to the beginning. Kid from Caboolture.
Yeah.
How did racing come into your life, Bossy?
It was very weird, Ed. Listen, I'd ridden horses since I was about 5 years old, and I could really ride. I didn't have a saddle for the first couple of years, was not allowed to. So we rode bareback. That's it. And I knew nothing about a saddle. I just didn't care. So, all those things. And I can never really remember not being on a horse every day. I just loved them. I was fascinated with them. I really felt like I got horses at a very young age. I understood them. Almost like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. I felt like I knew their thought process. I kind of got into their brain and I thought I really thought I had a sense of what they wanted and how to approach them. I learned about their anatomy, as a young horse. I was reading books about horses, that's how much I was involved. I loved them. I could just go into the paddock as a kid and just sit in a paddock and just watch them graze and walk around. I was always fascinated by the animal. And then midway through my early teens, I got into motorbike riding. I loved motorbikes, speed and all that stuff. And, mate, I don't know, I want to be a crusty demon or something, or ride motocross, And it wasn't until we were on a break in middle of grade 10 and I went to my grandmother's property up in Gympie and she loved going to races. I'd never been to a race meeting in my life. So it was a Saturday. She said, do you want to come to the races? And of course, hang out with my grandmother. Yeah, off we went. So we went to Gympie races, right? And this is the sliding doors moment that happens in your life. She drove in and where she parked, Ed, she parked at the top of the straight at Gympie racetrack. And there was a race being run at the time. I could hear the call. So I've jumped out and she was really close to the outside fence. So I've jumped out of the car and I've stood on the outside fence. And as I did, the horses were coming around the corner. And obviously the jockeys are reaching, going for their horses and not many people have stood 10 feet away from 8 horses going flat out. You're just like, Eddie.
Yeah.
and the ground moves. It's this thunder. It's an incredible sound, and they go past you, and you go. I went, holy fuck! I always went, what did I just see? It just went like that, and I was hooked. I was immediately hooked. My grandmother introduced me. We're there for the day, and I was bugging her about this thing, and anyway, she introduced me to a trainer who was to be my boss. I went back. So that was a Saturday. We drove back on Sunday to Caboolture. I went to school on the Monday, Caboolture High. I quit school, told my teachers I was quitting, went home and told my mum I was quitting. I'd quit school. And she was like, what's going on? And I was back at Gympie within a week or two, being with this trainer who was to be my boss, and that was how I started. It was just that quick. I had no idea what an apprenticeship was. I had no idea what a jockey was. I had no idea what this whole thing was, but I just knew I wanted to do it. And that was it. That was the start.
What was the apprenticeship like?
Oh, mate, I flew. I got told straight away that I was going to be too big and all this stuff, too heavy, blah, 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 because I was quite tall, but skinny as, The first 10 months, my first 10 months I rode in Gympie before I got transferred. I won the senior title and the apprentice title. Like there was 5 races on a program, or 6. I'd ride 4 of the 6. I rode 5 winners and just got beaten in the 6 one day. I'd be suspended because my will to win was incredible. But I'd ride a double every time I went to the races. And a great steward at the time up there, he was a Brisbane steward, but he'd go and do the country circuit. A bloke by the name of Graham Ireland, who passed some decade or so ago, great man. He could see that I was, had talent, but rough as guts, And he got my indentures transferred from Terry Chinner, who was my boss, to Kay Tinsley on the Gold Coast. So I went down to the Gold Coast at the end of my first year.
So you moved to the Gold Coast, do very well there. How does Sydney come up for you in your career, Bossy?
Well, Sydney come up when I was in Gympie as my first year. I was given a tape. It was called The King and the Man. I don't know if you've ever seen this VCR. It was a VCR. Beautifully narrated.
Bill Collins.
Bill Collins did, yes, Bill Collins. His voice and his sound, he's catching me. But it was all about Manicato winning those 5 William Reeds and Kingston Town. And most of it was all about Moonee Valley. And I fell in love with that scene. Like, I just knew I had to be there. That was my place. Malcolm Johnson, I fell in love with Malcolm Johnson. And I just knew, okay, this is where I have to be. This is the big time. Cox Plates, William Reeds, this is where I have to be. So it was all about, I remember in Gympie, I built this makeshift on 44-gallon drums. I put a saddle on it and was practicing my style, and then I'd go and watch the VCR again, and so it was all about my mindset. This is where I have to be, the big time. So going to the Gold Coast was more about, I won the apprentice title in the Gold Coast when I was there the next year, and then I was going toe-to-toe with Chrissy Muntz throughout our apprenticeship, and Chris would win every time, obviously, because he had all those, the backing up there, and I'd spend half the year out suspended, and, but Noel Doyle, who I was riding for, I was his stable rider as an apprentice, and he had some very good horses, King Jate, and he had some nice horses that went down to Sydney, and I went down to ride just where I'd work. And we were stationed at Warwick Farm. So when I was down there, I started riding a few horses for Clary Connors, and I rode a few winners in Sydney for Max Leagues. Great trainer, very well-respected trainer. So this is at the end of my apprenticeship. We went home. Maxie Lees gave me a call and said, "What are you doing?" I was just come out of my apprenticeship. And I had a bit of an up. When I came out of apprenticeship, there was some bad stuff happening around it. But anyway, he called me up and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Not much." He said, "Why don't you come down to Sydney and I'll support you?" And this was Maxie Lees was in the top 2 or 3 trainers in Sydney, and a big team and highly respected. And it blew me away. So I just got in the car and drove down to Sydney, and that's how it started.
You get that first Group 1 to Leicester for a young trainer then,
Yep.
Graham Begg.
Yep.
How big a moment was that, Bossy?
Graham, I love Graham Begg and Sue. Wonderful people. I mean, even when I see Sue and Graham now, it just, I get a good feeling there. Graham supported me big, and Graham was young, but he could train, he really was. But his dad, Mr. Begg, was a big supporter of mine as well, Neville. And so I got on very well with those two. And I loved Graham Begg because he was very articulate. I could see when I was, even at a young age, his horses would come out and he'd pray, the horses would pray before he got on. His horses look a little bit better than a lot of people's, He just had a knack of making them look beautiful, and he had a lot of confidence when I rode for him. But he had this horse called Telesto, which Shane Dye was a regular rider of. And Shane elected to ride something else in that race, the Chipping Norton, sorry, at Warwick Farm, and they asked me to ride this colt, and he was a strange horse. I'd ridden him work, and he was a very quirky colt, a beautiful colt, but very quirky. He was one of them colts. Even when you rode him work, if you pushed him, he'd dig in a little bit, and he'd sort of. You have to work with him, but you'd have to give him a bit of a cuddle and say, "Oh, everything's good, buddy," and then he'd come to you. And in a race, he would jump, and he would not take part for the first furlong. If you had ever seen his runs, his tapes, he would detach himself from the field. And the more you pushed him, the more he would detach himself. So you used to jump out and just go, sit there and go, talk to him a bit, everything's good, boy, and just sit there nice and quiet, knowing that he would detach himself, but knowing that if you pushed him, you'd get further out, and knowing that at some point he'll pick it up. Anyway, he did that, and I just cuddled him, and by the time we got the half mile, he tacked onto the field, and he had this incredible, he could break 33, like off a standing start, like incredible spurt. So he just tacked on, you get the 600, and you'd ride him cold because you'd had to, and I rode him really well. He'd cut through the field, I think I went around, and he just went bang and won my first Group 1, and then you kind of really have a sense, Ed, that this is where you do belong. I hadn't been in Sydney long, I think probably 6 or 8 months, and I won my first Group 1. And, Ed, this is the thing. I'm in the room now with my idols, Shane Dye, Jimmy Cassidy, Mick Dittman, Kevin Moses, Johnny Marshall, Ronnie Quitten. Like, I'm in, Wayne Harris, and I've missed some, right? These are my idols, and I'm in the room like this, just listening to them stories and listen to what they watching too, very visual. And I've ridden my first Group 1, so that was a big moment for me. And I rode it well, and it captured a bit of attention.
Was that intimidating as a young guy from Queensland coming into that room, or was it a case of this is where I should be?
Oh no, I was never intimidated. This is where I wanted to be. And listen, I used to ask a lot of questions, and like Jimmy Cassidy was a great mentor to me, and he's one of my best mates. Well, he's probably one of my closest mates, and he was so good to me. I used to love watching him ride because he'd tell me before he went out and rode, in a Group 1 or whatever, he'd say, "You watch this," and he'd tell me what he's going to do, and he'd just do it. So it's like, he used to tell me things, live and do it, die by the sword, things like the worst decision you'll ever make is never making a decision. When you're watching your idol and they're telling you that you're just like a sponge and you're lapping all this stuff. Shane Dye, one of the greatest tacticians I've ever seen on a horse, well before his time. These are very skilled jockeys. So I was privileged that I was able to be in the sanctum, and they actually would give me part information to me because they could see that I was asking questions and I wanted to learn. So I'm very blessed to be in that situation because I learnt very quickly, and that probably helped me, riding for Gay, like I was riding for Bart Gay. Mr. TJ was massive for me. He put a lot of confidence in me. So I kind of very quickly, like I'm within 12 months, I was part of the Sydney scene, which I did not ever expect.
Did you ever buy Jimmy Cassidy a beer after Flying Spurs Golden Slipper? Because that's another sliding doors moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it was crazy. And we speak about this now. And he said it was, if there was anyone, I'm so happy it was you, because, and it's funny, like these situations, that jockeys tape, It was incredible. I was riding work for Gay. I was running number 2 for Gay at the time, and Shane was number 1. Like, this is crazy, right? And Shane rang me before track work. He said, don't go to track work. There's something's on. And I'm going, he said, this jockey tapes, mate, they were going to be, I had no idea what he was talking about. So I just went to work, and all of a sudden there's all these press there and talking about jockey's tapes, and I had no idea. Anyway, it all broke out, and obviously, Jimmy got suspended. I was riding a very good colt for John Singleton going into the slipper, and he went wrong on the Tuesday. He had one start and he won brilliantly, and he made the field. And anyway, he went sore that week, and so I was without a ride. And all of a sudden, jockey's tape broke out, and Lee rang me and said, "Would you ride Flying Spur?" Obviously for John Massara and Arrowfield, and I said 100%. I can go ride. So then, but Jimmy overturned that suspension in a high court, and he was actually. Then they rang me and said, "Oh, listen, Jimmy's back on." Oh no, but whatever. Sorry. And then the stewards overturned that decision again at a higher level. Mm-hmm. So next thing, it was like Friday night, and I'm on. That's how crazy, right? And then the rest was history. I mean, I remember that day, Ed, so vividly. What happened? I'm on the horse, and obviously through the whole week, there was a lot going on around us. So the focus was not on racing so much, because it was a pretty bad week. But then we get to the races, and I'm riding Flying Spur. He was about 20-1 in the race. He'd ran well on a Blue Diamond. They put him in a paddock. And then Anthony said, "Mate, you better come and have a look at this horse. He's running around like a lunatic. I think we should start him in the slipper." So I remember getting on, and Lee Friedman, I'd ridden once for him in a Dooming 10,000 for him a couple of years before. So I don't really know Lee. And I remember we got in the enclosure, and Lee said to me, "Listen, Bossy, you'll know exactly what you've got by the time you get to the barriers." He said, this colt, there's either one or two things he'll do. He said he'll either run last or he will win. And I'm going, wow, really? He said, but I promise you, by the time you get the barriers, you'll know if you can win or lose. And I'm going, I don't know what you're talking about, but anyway, he said, I'm telling you because he'll give you the. And I remember going to the barriers, and I'm getting goosebumps now. He was like game face. Like I could feel his energy going to the barriers, and I thought, this is the best colt I've ever ridden at this time. I went to the barriers, and I'm thinking, I even said to one of the boys behind me, this will win the slipper. I drew one, and they're like dickhead. Anyway, I drew one, I give him a good ride, and he exposed himself, and I come through a gap and beat octagonal, and won my first major, and this is when you go into a different level. That was the biggest turning point of my whole career.
What did it do for you, Bossy?
Oh, it did everything for me. That was winning a major hadn't been in Sydney long, and give it the best ride ever, and beat a very good horse in octagonal, on the line, and incredible. I rode with a broken wrist. I had a very bad fall at Queanbeyan only 3 weeks before. I was riding an odds-on favourite in the Queanbeyan Cup for Gay Waters, and I had a fall. There was a 4-horse fall in a couple of races before the Cup, and I'd broken my scaphoid, broke my wrist pretty bad. Anyway, I taped it up, and I rode this horse in the Queanbeyan Cup because it was odds-on. And I remember what happened, I was winning the race, and I had the whip in the left hand like that, and the thing kicked away, but when it did it started to stargaze. So I pulled the stick through and give it one with my bad wrist. Yep. Anyway, the horse won. I fainted not long after the race. The cloak of the course grabbed me, and I fainted. I woke up in the jockey's room. I'd come off. And anyway, I went to hospital. They operated on it, and this is 3 weeks before the slipper. So I rode in the slipper with a broken wrist. If you ever see the pictures, I've got this massive brace on me. But because for some reason, when I had the broken wrist, I said, you've got to get me back in time for the slipper. You know what I mean? Weird things, how things happen. But winning the slipper, that changed my whole life.
A lot of ups and downs in your life. From a physical point of view, let's go forward, say, 7 years. You're in Macau. It's a Tuesday night. It's basically the Vegas of Asia. You had a bad fall there. What happened?
Ed, I was airborne, I was winning derbies, and, I was like tearing on number 1 for Gay, and, Bart's putting me on, and I'm really going, I had one, another major, but I'm winning derbies and I'm winning good races and Doncasters and whatnot. And I went to Hong Kong and rode for John Moore for a 3-month loan when I was a kid. Really enjoyed it. I thought, well, I'm going to end up in Hong Kong at one point. I was very young. And then I got a call from Gary Moore. It was winter, and he said, do you want to come to Macau and ride for a couple of months? He said, you don't have to ride work. You can go and stay at the resort. You can bring your family and just ride my horses. And I said, oh, mate, that'll be fun. So I went to Macau. And if you remember, you would have been to Macau back in the day.
Plenty of times, yeah.
Back then, it wasn't Macau of what it is now. But, back in the day, they had no work, health or safety back then in Macau, did they? You'd ride in storms and you'd ride in some pretty precarious stuff. And like I said, I wasn't there that long. And it was a night time and there was a massive storm. And I'm in the barriers thinking, wow, this is not really good, the rainstorms you have in Asia.
They're incredible.
The raindrops are as big as tennis balls. And I'm in the barriers and there's even furrows, because the water was rushing through the dirt so quick. And anyway, I jumped out in this particular race thinking this is not good. And I lost my iron basically, and I was trying to get my foot back in the iron and it didn't happen. I had a fall and landed on my, on my shoulder. And when you hit the sand, Ed, as you know, you don't roll. I just stopped and I broke my neck. And I wasn't long after the start, probably about 200 or 300 metres after the start. And the boys from the barriers rushed down because they could see I was on the ground, and I was so lucky, Ed, that I was conscious. I never lost consciousness, and I knew I'd broken something here, and I just got my helmet off really steadily because I could feel the pain and the heat straight away. And I said to the boys, please don't touch me. Don't move me. I reckon I've broken my neck here. I just knew instinctively. And so they put the brace on me and got me to hospital. It was pretty hairy. And the MRI come back and I'd broken my C2. I'd snapped the wing at have you ever seen the bone, the C2 bone?
No.
It's a really weird bone. So it's got, I can't get my hands, it's got 2 wings and it's like that. And it's at the base of your skull. I'd broken one wing completely off and this one was fractured, but I'd fractured the actual thing, the actual bone. But because I never moved it was a stable fracture. And I went to Hong Kong and Julian Chang operated on me in Hong Kong. And what he told me, he said if I'd moved my head, because it was actually a fracture, 10 degrees up, down, left or right, I would have turned that stable fracture into an unstable fracture and it would have severed my spinal cord. And they call it the hangman's break. And you probably have 5 minutes, because it controls your lungs. You break it, you sever your spinal cord at the top base of your skull. And I mean, when people hang themselves, that's what breaks. And you die. Yeah. So I was later, that was how, but I didn't know that at the time until he told me. And then, but they put the halo brace on me, the 4 things go into your skull and you put that ugly brace on and you just get back on, you're thinking about getting back on the horse basically, aren't you? That's your whole mindset, as an athlete, that's all you want to do.
Are there mental scars there though when you do get on the horse the next time?
Yeah, there was, because in that 6-month period before, 5-6 months when I was in that brace, obviously there was a lot of muscle waste, and there was a couple of surgeons said, I don't think you should go back riding. There was a couple, but I had one very good neurosurgeon. He was quite an aggressive young man in Sydney, and I gravitated to him because he was quite aggressive. And he said, "Mate, listen, it's like a numb of bone. If this heals, yeah, sure, it might be a risk, but he said, what are you going to do? Not going to walk across the street, not going to drive a car again. You know what I mean?" And I gravitated towards him. So I said, I want to get back riding. He said, "Mate, I'll get you back, don't worry." Anyway, they took the brace off, and because I'd muscle wasted a bit, and it was funny, when I was in that brace, I'd walk every day. I actually played golf in the damn thing. I kept myself very active to try and keep my mindset right. Anyway, he took the brace off and I was quite nervous and scared because I felt I was a bit weak. He actually grabbed my head and went bang like that. And when you crack your neck?
Yeah.
No, because I was scared, and he could see I was scared, and he just went whack like that and cracked my neck. He said, "Mate, you're fine." I nearly died, but he went in doing that. I said, no, I'm fine. And he said, mate, you just got to do these exercises every day and strengthen your neck and you'll be fine, you know. And the transition to getting on a horse head, it was, I got back on and I was a little nervous, thinking if I have another fall, what will be the outcome? But I had a very good filly I was riding there, a mare. That's what got me back in the saddle so quick, Republic Lass.
Mm.
So my mindset was, like, she beat Northerly in the autumn. So I rode her in the autumn, had the broken neck and I'm coming back, you know, the spring. So this is how the turnaround was very quick. And she was going to be my pin-up girl. Like, you know, she was one of the favourites of the Melbourne Cup. She was one of the favourites of the Caulfield Cup and she was in the market for the Cox Plate. Very highly regarded 4-year-old mare. She'd smashed him in the Oaks. She'd beat Northerly. She was a proper horse. So she was the one that's going to get me back, right? And unfortunately, she partway through that preparation, I rode her at Warwick Farm in a gallop, and for the greatest, one of the greatest trainers I've ever ridden for, Guy Walter. She galloped brilliantly, and she's on fire, right? Anyway, she was one stride. There was a crossing at Warwick Farm, and she just went out of the crossing and just put one foot a bit wrong. And I went, guys, she worked unbelievable. On pulling up over the crossing, she just sort of skipped across it. And he went, okay, no worries. Anyway, he rang me that morning, 10 o'clock, and said, mate, she's done a tendon. And I'm like, my whole world, Ed, my whole world just dropped because I'd spent the best part of a year and a half on this, modelling her and getting, like, she was my girl, right? You know, I wrote her a lot of work and I was modelling her and working on her and perfecting her to get to be a proper racehorse. So hours of tinkering with her to make sure I could get her to a point because I knew that she was a proper racehorse. So when I lost her and she had to be retired, it was like I lost a child, you know, because I spent hours, Guy and I had spent so much time on making her be a proper racehorse. So it was a real shame to lose her. But in you know, like I said, sliding doors moment, Ed, I rang David, who I would go and ride for in Melbourne a lot. I'd ridden a derby for him, and we had a lot of success. And I just happened to ring David and having a cry. So, mate, you know, I was crying. I said, mate, I've lost me bloody good horse, and you know, what am I going to do? You know. And he said, mate, don't worry about it. You can ride Fantastic if you want through the cups. Because I ran fifth on him the year before. Or he said, mate, you can ride this mare I've got called Makybe Diva. And I went, well, Fantastic's a pretty good option. But this Makybe Diva, tell me, jog my memory. He said, no, she won the Queen Elizabeth, mate, and I think she's very good. She's coming through the grades. And I went, okay. And that was that. You know, that was that. He said, come down. I want you down here a week before the Caulfield Cup, and I want you to ride her in a gallop and to tell me what you think. And that was the moment, yeah.
What was that first feel then she gave you in that gallop leading into the Caulfield Cup?
Yeah, incredible, Ed. Like, I'd ridden some very good horse flesh up to this point, even like I'm saying, you know, but no champions, but horses that were bordering on being champions. Ridden champion 2-year-olds, champion 3-year-olds, but nothing, you know, like, you know, they're...
No out-and-out champions.
No, I'm talking the elite. So it was a crazy experience. So the first time I laid eyes on her, she walks out at, you know, 4:30 at Flemington, and she's this real tall, looked like someone had just draped a sheet over a coat hanger, you know, but... Physically, it was there, but no strength, no muscle strength. But a beautiful head, just a kind-looking horse, good-looking eye. And I go out on the thing was, Ed, it was a 2,000-metre gallop on the course proper at Flemington. And David said, you know, get to the 1,000, you're doing your three-quarter now, which is 15 to the furlong. He said, then when you get the half mile, you're increasing every furlong, every 200 metres, as you know, for people out there. And I want you going quicker every 200 metres. And when you get to the quarter pole, 200 metres. He said, I want you near your top, but not at your top. A nice gallop. This is a good gallop for anyone, right? So the first time I get over, I'm cantering, I'm thinking, geez, this is nice. Like, very efficient stride, very quiet on the ground, no banging, you know? So that was really nice to start with. I'm doing my 3/4 work and I'm thinking, well, she's doing 15 to the furlong like I feel like I'm doing 18. So I'm counting thinking, wow, this is too easy, 15s. And then I start going my 13s and that feels like 15. And now I'm really starting to increase my speed. I get to the 200 metre mark and I'm going very fast, but I feel like I'm going very slow. So she finishes her gallop and I'm thinking, wow, that was very quick, but with no effort. But now, and I was always a student and I was always taught by some very good horse people. It's not, when you get to this level, horses can run very fast. They can all run very quick. They're fast. They're great athletes. But it's what they do after a gallop is what you should be aware of. I'm talking like the great Percy Sykes. You know what I mean? I would be around TJ. This goes back this far. You know, TJ would tell me it's not what they do, it's how they do it after the gallop, the recovery. You're looking for the sign of a great athlete. So she pulled up after that gallop near the 1400 metre mark, Ed, and she took 2 massive breaths. And under the saddle, I felt her heart rate drop and then her breathing within 20 seconds like come back to normal. And I went, what have we got? And she trotted back like she would do that exact gallop again and do it better. I trotted back to David and she's gone very quick on the clock. He said, she's pretty good, eh? And I went, David, you have got no idea, mate. This is a champion. This is the best horse I've ever ridden. And he went, what do you mean? I said, mate, it's got a recovery. It's got an aerobic capacity like I've never, ever sat on. And then I knew I was on something special. So, yeah, crazy, right?
Exactly, to come back from a year off, you know, a year earlier, you're close to death. Here you are, Makybe Diva, at first Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
What was that like, Bossy?
Oh, mate, like, Ed, Melbourne Cups are it's our holy grail, right? Cox Plates and a Melbourne Cup. So I rode her in the Caulfield Cup and she drew outside barrier. We went back, basically knowing that we can't win the Caulfield Cup, but I think we got the right horse to win the Melbourne Cup. So I rode her back last. I cut my way through the field and she just went like a lightning bolt, ran fourth.
And that was the Caulfield Cup where Mummified dominated from in front.
Mate, I was just about, you took the words out. He led at a sedate gallop and Danny Nicklick rode a very clever little race on Mummify. But she just launched and the times don't lie. The last half a mile was quicker than the open sprint on the day. So we knew this is the one. So she, in that tender, in that 2 weeks, 2 and a bit weeks from the Caulfield Cup to the Melbourne Cup, I've never seen an animal blossom. It was almost like she was almost growing in front of us. She wasn't, but she was just blossoming. Her coat was good. You could tell her mannerisms were getting, like she was getting a little bit more aggressive in her work. This is what she was doing. This is what she was to do right through her career, which, you know, wasn't to know. But I just watching this animal sort of develop in front of me. And even David Hall could, you know, he just knew she's changing, you know. So we knew we had the horse. Her work was spot on. So come Monday afternoon, David Hall, we had a meeting, you know, with Tony. He'd backed her to win $1 million. We were very confident at the call of the card. So we had a meeting with David Hall at his stable on Monday afternoon, how we're going to execute this plan, you know. And David said to me, see that thing over there? Because his stable barn, you know, was, I think his barn was where
Danny O'Brien
trains now. And when you're up on his top level, you can see the racetrack, right? And he said, see that thing over there? He said, and I looked over my shoulder, he said, see the 600 metre mark? I said, oh, yeah. He said, when you get there tomorrow, he said, I want you to count to 10. Just keep your powder dry. And I was kind of instinctively thinking that's what I have to do anyway. But he said, I want you to just relax at this point, because when you let her go, it's going to go 22. Like, it's going to go quick. It's going to break that probably. It's probably going to go 20 and a half. That's how quick she was. And I said, yeah, good, I'll do that. So I rode her good. I got to the fence and, you know, I won off most of the way, but I was kind of close to the fence and she gave me a great ride, Ed, throughout the race. And when I got to the 600, I just knew. I just stayed there. I just sat and I studied the race. I looked at this race, the history of this race, and I really knew that it's to this day, there's always two waves. There's this wave that starts about the 1,000 half mile where people are making runs and you can see it coming. And then there's this next wave that comes, and that's the wave that goes that way. The first wave goes that way, and then there's this another wave, and actually the one that comes through the middle. And it happens every year. So I knew I wanted to catch the second wave. So I'm sitting there waiting, cut my way through the field, and then exposed her at the 300 metre mark, and she'd rested the whole way, so she had a lot of energy. And when she burst through and let go of that paralysing sprint that she has, she put him to bed very quickly. And it's a crazy moment, Ed, to go past the post and to win your first major, first Melbourne Cup. It's an incredible experience. What's
going through you in that experience?
Every sinew in your body is on fire. Every sinew. And I've had this experience, going through this experience with James McDonald, when I tell him, when you win this, when you win, you wait. Even last year, when someone hasn't won it and I think they're going to win it, I say, you wait for this feeling. You will never experience this. It's your brain goes into hyper drive. You have these memories, you remember yourself as a kid, you remember the journey you went on, you remember the people who were with you. Then you're thinking about this athlete that's underneath you that just took you to victory for your first one. And there's a lot goes on. And then you get off and it's this whirlwind, it's just it's a crazy experience. Very, very, very vivid memories of that first one,
So you've won 3 Melbourne Cups, 90 Group 1s overall. Is it different to any other big race, that feeling that you get winning the Melbourne Cup, compared to a Slipper, a Cox Plate, a Doncaster, for instance?
Yeah, I think the two that really grabbed me, Cox Plates. As a kid, I wanted to win a Cox Plate before a Melbourne Cup because I'd watched that videotape, The King of the Man. So the Cox Plate was the one race I wanted to win. They're the two races. I think they're the best. Like the Cox Plate is our best race because it's littered with champions. It's littered with champions, champion jockeys, champion trainers, and champion horses. The Melbourne Cup is our greatest race. It's not littered. There's champions have won it, but it's not littered with champions. But what it is, it's a great race for the stories. It's a race that stops the nation. It's a race that now stops a lot of parts of the world. So it's got that. But they're the two races that give you that sense, those moments, yeah.
So let's talk about the Cox Plate then, your first one of those. And this is a moment where you inspired me as well, Bossy. You gave me one of the happiest days I've had on a race course because Makybe Diva's Cox Plate, I watched that with my grandfather who died not long after that. That moment.
Yes.
When you're all taking off at the school. I've never seen anything like that. That was just, from the stands, it gave me chills watching it. What was it like for you being in it?
Oh, yeah, that's a craziest moment and one of the best moments I've ever had on a horse. I was very nervous, Ed, that time because we put all our eggs in one basket. We actually had no we weren't thinking about the Melbourne Cup. Lee said we're going to win the Cox Plate with her this year, this prep, because for her to be spoken about as one of the greats, the absolute, we're talking Kingston Towns and the greats of the greats, the ones that, the top 5 that we've ever seen, she has to win a Cox Plate because it's our best race. I said, okay, good, let's do that. So how are we going to do that, Lee? He said, I'm going to completely change her prep. So he got her to win first up over 1400. She won at Caulfield. She beat Regal Roller.
Yeah.
No mean feat. In a 1400, that's his backyard. A race that's now named after him, basically. So he got her to win over 7 furlongs first up. Stephen King, I couldn't ride her because I was riding in Sydney in all the good races. So Stephen King warmed the saddle for me when I couldn't. She got beaten second up at Caulfield when she was not ready. And then she won every start after that. So we get to the Cox Plate day and she's on fire, you know. So I'm thinking, well, this is possibly the last time I'm going to ride her because we really are. We're only going that far. So the stage was set for her. Everyone was turning up just to watch her win. Everyone had their masks on. It was going to be one of them big days, Ed. And I was always very confident race day. You know, you have the dreams. I dotted all the I's. I crossed all my T's. I'd done all the work Friday. Saturday was all about just freewheeling for me. I was that type of person. So the night before, Ed, I had all the dreams, but I had myself getting beat. I'd had all these dreams about other races and I never got beat. I'd fall off, get back on, win, backwards, sideways. It was just pleasant, you know. This one, I had myself getting beat. I had a bad night's sleep. I got to the races and I was very nervous. I don't remember riding the races before the Cox Plate. That's how nervous I was. You know, it was ridiculous. And I always did this thing, Ed, before I rode in the majors. I'm talking, you know, Doncasters and very good races, proper Group 1s. I'd go into the bathrooms and I'd look myself down the barrel. And when you look yourself down the barrel, you can't lie to yourself. It's impossible. So I'd say, Bossy, you know that you've done everything. You know you're the best here. You know you can get this job done. You know you're on the best horse. And you know that you can get this job done. And then the last thing I'd say now, just relax. And that would be my trigger. And I could do it every time. I went in the barriers that day, Ed, and I said, oh, fuck, Bossy, have a look at yourself. I was physically like that because, you know, there's only one thing that could stop this thing happening, and it was me if I got it wrong. And I would be one that shot Bambi, you know what I mean? Everyone's going to walk away, Bossy fucked it up. That was her last race. So I felt like pressure like nothing else. And I tried to do that thing and it didn't work. So, fuck, Bossy, you know. So I went back and I sat down at the end where in my spot, I had a glass of water. I got back and went back into the bathroom and I said, Bossy, okay, come on, Bossy. You know you're on the best horse. You know you've done everything right. You know you're the best rider. You know you can get this job done. You know you can execute. And now relax. And it just went like that, Ed. A whole wave went and it just worked. I walked out and I was just like in this state, you know. And I walked out and I said to Lee, because he used to ask me what are you doing? I said, mate, I'm going to ride her so bad, it's going to be good. And I said, mate, I'm going to ride her so ugly, it's going to be pretty. And he went, what the fuck are you talking about? And Tony said it was like that. I said, just watch. Because I was just now in this state, which I got myself into a couple of times. And my plan was, one off the fence, keep her out of trouble, showcase her. Wait for age 2,000 metres. She's the best horse in the world at this point. That's what I'm going to do. But I was, you know, to see what was going to unfold from the 1,000 metres on, no one had any idea, hey, you know, like, because I was always going to be clear air. So I popped out. Next thing, they were all popping out. And there's 9 or 10 of us, I think, 9 maybe. And I went, what is happening? But as soon as I felt that moment, in the next millisecond, I went, they've all gone too, these fools, they've all gone too soon. And I'm still like that. So I just knew it was over. And there's this beautiful shot where I'm basically the only one sitting there. And I remember Stephen King was in the race and he thought he was travelling well. He was on Fields of Omar, I think. Or was he maybe on Fields? And he thought he was travelling good and he looked over and went, oh, fuck.
I think Fields ran third that year, Lateria second.
Yeah, Lateria. Chris Muntz got up on the inside, rode a beautiful race on Lateria. He wasn't part of the wave. And Fields of Omar ran third, but she won my first Cox Plate. And, what a great moment. Crazy, crazy moment, you know.
You were part of that Kingston Town history at that point.
Now, I've put my name in the list, as Cox Plate champion, something that I wanted to do from a 15, 16-year-old kid. Crazy moment, yeah.
So when you said before that the Melbourne Cup wasn't on the agenda, when did it become part of the agenda for her to go for a third after beating Vinnie Rowe the year before and trying to do the historic three-peat that number had gone for 2 and been successful, none had made a 3?
No. She expelled herself that day, Ed, and I thought, well, that was it. You know, she was a little bit, like I said to you earlier, she pulled up after every race, every moment, particularly well. She was an athlete. She was a little bit glazed. Her eye was a bit glazed that day. I remember, and I said to Lee, listen, she's a bit stressed today. And he could see, he looked at her eye and went, oh, yeah, here we go. So I remember him, he was leading her around after, and I did all the silly stuff because, give it to the crowd and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, we did that night, and he said, yeah, she was a bit stressed, She went back, she ate up. She got the reports from the stable after that night we were having dinner. She ate up, which was a great sign, but we're still thinking it's over, right? So Lee rings me on Tuesday. No, sorry, it was Monday. He said, Bossy, and I'm thinking this is it, end of the story, end of the road. Mate, she's done everything we've asked. He said, Bossy, I need you down at Markdale property tomorrow. This thing has put on 6 kilos since Saturday. And he said, I can't tell you what this thing's done. And I went, wow. So I get down there on Tuesday, and she comes out with a saddle on, and I'm going, mate, have a look at you. It seemed bigger in all aspects and brighter. We did 2 sedate gallops, bits of work. So I do you do a canter on the sand track, and then you do this gallop uphill, and that finishes over the top. It surveys the whole property. So I do my 2 bits of work. I finish, and she just takes these massive breaths of wind that she did, and she just stood on the top of the property, and she surveyed with her ears pricked, and just her heart rate dropped as it did, and I'm just going, man, oh man. I trotted down because Lee said, do not sugarcoat this thing. I said, Lee, this will not get beat. He said, no. We're going to do one more thing. We're going to take her to Mornington on Saturday morning, Derby morning, and we're going to give her a proper gallop. Because if she won't handle a proper gallop on Saturday, she's got 58 kilos now. And he said, I will not take her to the races to run 2nd, 3rd, 4th or get beat. He said, I will not do this. I will not disrespect her. And so I'm on the same page. So he said, I'm going to take her and give her a pretty good gallop. And if she can't handle that, she will not handle the first Tuesday. So good. So we go to Mornington on Saturday morning, and there would be 1,000 people there, press everywhere to watch this gallop. He worked with a listed horse who was a pretty good horse. The listed horse was to be my target. He was about 3 lengths in front of me. At Mornington, short, straight, uphill. Anyway, the other galloper probably put a bit more on me than I expected to because it was a pretty good horse, and I thought, oh, okay, she's not going to really catch this horse. It's going to be, she's going to work well, but it's not going to look good. Come around the turn at Mornington, and I give this horse a bit of start, and I just went, no, that. She just dropped, lengthened stride, and just went, poof. And not only give that horse start, beat it by a length and a half, and did it with ridiculous ease. Like, it felt like I was cantering. Now I'm going, I'd come back and said, Lee, this will not get beat, mate. It can't get beat. It's airborne. So we're going to the Melbourne Cup. We are going. We made our decision. So I'm like a kid on Saturday morning with all these presents under the tree, and I have to wait because I just knew. I had a meeting with Tony Sanick on Monday night. Obviously rode Derby Day. I had a meeting with him at Crown, and this is true word, Ed. I said, mate, I had a beer with him, and I said, mate, this is like a runaway locomotive. I said, we can't stop this. And Tony's looked at me and said, please don't say shit like that. I said, Tony, I'm telling you, this is fate, destiny. This is a runaway locomotive, and we can't stop this happening. It'll happen tomorrow. You just go there. I said to him, go there tomorrow, and you just have the best day of your life. It will happen. And I had the best sleep that night. Woke up the morning, mate, my whole world was just pure perfect. I went to the races. I did 1 million phone calls, radio, every phone I want to talk about. I'd say she was going to win today. Most perfect day of my whole life, in my professional life, crazy.
So completely different to how you're feeling leading into the Cox Plate.
Oh, mate, you got no idea. And she walked out. I had the best day at the races in my life. And she walked out of the, when they get saddle out the back, she walked into the mounting enclosure, number 1 saddle cloth, and she looked like a big shiny black Bentley. She walked in there, and I just said, have a look at you. I'm in love with this animal. So she walks out there and she's just strutting around. She just looked beautiful, right? It was almost like, the only way I could describe it is like it was nighttime and someone had a spotlight and they just shined it just on her. So there was, the other horses were there, but they were just in the background. There was this big, shiny black Bentley just parading around. I got on her and I went down the roses, and obviously there's 120,000 people there this day, right? And it's noisy. They've all got, there's posters everywhere about Makybe. There's writing in the sky. It's a big day. And she's walking down the roses and she's barely on her toes. And I'm looking behind me and they're just losing their shit because everyone's, doing this. They can virtually touch you, the noise. I parade her down to the barriers and she went down there on the loosest rein, just so in control of what she is about to do. Like, this athlete is so in control of what she's about to do. And I was just like the lucky pilot, I'm in the barriers and I'm taking my hands off the reins. This is how relaxed I was. And I'm adjusting my goggles and she's just standing there waiting for the other horses. Her heart rate was hardly up. And, because you can feel it, right? And I'm just embarrassed thinking, this is so easy. We break, she breaks, basically, she always breaks nearly first. We get to the winning post. I'm down on the rail, 3/4 back way through the field. The pace is perfect. Mate, I just went like that because I pushed her into a spot, and you do. You just push him and get him in, mate, because you want to get that. That's the first part of your job is get to the spot before you get to the winning post. And once I got there, I just went like that, and she just went like that. And from this point, Ed, it's over. From this point, it's over. For me, all I had to do was just monitor her now, make sure she's breathing well, feel the race, make sure the tempo was still, all good, and just enjoy the moment. And then when you get to the sort of 1,000 half mile mark, this is when you start coming back on board because you've rested at this point. All you're doing is resting, just making sure everything's cool. And you get to 1,000 and then you start coming back on board. Your senses start to come up again because, now you're starting to monitor and really come on board. And I get to the half mile and I'm just thinking, mate, this is just too easy. Get to the 600 and the first wave's already started and I'm just starting to cut through. And I remember getting towards about the 400 metre mark, Ed, you're starting to straighten up. 350, you're starting to straighten up. And I remember just thinking, I'm cutting through and there was a run in my peripheral vision. It's just a run to my right and just went like bang and like that. And she shouldered it out and next thing she's exposed now. And I've got 350 metres or 300 metres where I've got nothing. I'm exposed and I went like that and just, the spurt that she gave me was incredible. And so I had 300 metres, Ed, knowing that I'd won. Like at the mile, I know I had won, but now I'm really knowing I'm going to win. And the most incredible experience. Because normally when you're winning big races, you're so focused to the winning post. It's just you're willing the post towards you, and you're so focused on. I don't care how far in front. You still want to win, and so you completely shut out everything. But I didn't have that moment. The noise come towards me. I could hear parts of the call. I could hear the crowd. Because you have that moment, Ed, when a horse hits the ground, the front foot hits the ground, it's called breaking stride, and they actually slow down by a couple of kilometres. So you get this, you get the wind come, and then when you hit the ground, it stops for a moment. It's a millisecond. So that noise stops for a millisecond. But in that moment, you can hear the crowd, and I could hear parts of the call. And so when you're matching and there's literally milliseconds up, it was happening often. It was a weird experience. I'd never had that experience in my life. But so I had this moment where I could just enjoy it. And just I was thinking about her and you can see this vision of me, this photographer caught this vision as on the last 100, my smile was getting bigger and bigger as I'm getting towards the line because I could feel it, and then we went past the post and you just, knowing the history of the race, Ed, being a real history buff of this race and really diving into it and the stories, going past the post now, I realise that we've done something that no one else has ever done.
And unlikely to be ever done ever again, Bossy.
And may not be, may hopefully one day maybe, but I actually felt like Edmund Hillary, who was the first one, Everest. it may be done again. But it has done. But, but this one may never get done again because logistically to get an athlete to be that good on that day going up in weights and I beat some champions too. I beat some bloody good horses along the way. Vinnie Rowe.
Yeah, he was a superstar.
Mate, I didn't just beat ordinary horses on this journey. I beat some good horses. So, but I felt like, yes, I'm the first one that's ever done this and may not ever be repeated. And then you just, the emotion that comes out, I'm shaking now, of this athlete that you've been on the journey with. And you've just watched her evolve. You've watched her mould and get stronger, get better, get more aggressive. We put her through hell. We took her to Japan once and we put her through hell. No horse should have come through what we did to her in Japan, but she come back better. So you're just in such awe of this athlete, of what she's achieved and what she's done for you. And, you think about David Hall, who started with her, and then you think about Lee and the boys, and you think about Tony and Christine, your family and everything that was involved with this journey. But at the end of the day, it was her. So I remember I took her down as far as I could. I reckon I went to the 1,200 metre mark. And I remember Letzi chasing me down on Banjo. And he got down to me and poor Banjo was buggered because I knew this was the last time. So I wanted to be on her as long as possible. And just to be... And Ed, when I talk about the dreams I have the night before, I did dream the night before because I was thinking about, okay, this is it. This will be the last time I ride her. And we hadn't spoke about retirement, but I knew it. I said, what am I going to do for her that will be her crowning moment? The moment for her to the people, because she was such a public figure by then. She was a front page and back page for best part of 10 days, maybe longer, every day. So I went, what's the most special part of Flemington? It's the clock tower. It's the crowd, right? That's where the public are. So I thought, I'm going to take her I am going to take her to the clock tower and I'm going to let her have her moment. And so I'm doing my thing with Letzi, and then I went, clock tower. So I go down to the clock tower and I took my hands off the reins, and this is the most defining, best moment I've ever had on a horse. Any moment, 10 seconds. I took my hands off the reins. She stood there and she went from one end of the straight with her ears pricked. I could feel her heart rate. I could feel her underneath me. Her veins were popping out. She was big and black and shiny. And she's standing there in front of 120,000 people, and then not one person was looking the other way. Everyone was looking this way. And she just stood there for 10 seconds and went, yep, have a look. You know what I mean?
How good am I?
They've all come to see me. I felt like Bono, U2 at a rock concert. I felt like that person. I had command of everyone, and her and I. And then, you go back and you trot down and the crowd goes mad, and, Tony was doing that, and Chrissy took her in for me, and, I don't think anyone, I mean, people have experienced great moments in our sport, and, but as personally, I don't think anyone's experienced what I experienced that day 3 times in a row in front of like hundreds of millions of people watched that around the globe. We actually did get a call from Bono to say that was one of the biggest moments he'd ever seen in sport, because they were touring here at the time.
Yeah.
So that's the impact that moment had. So, she left a big footprint, and I think there was other mares or other athletes that took our sport to a different sport, a different genre, like a different.
Black Caviar and Winks, you're talking.
Yeah, but they come after her, right? She took our sport to the masses. You know what I mean? People who weren't involved in racing, she actually took it to the masses. Then we had the ones after her, Black Caviar and Winks. They did that as they brought, but she was the one that did that first. It really captured a lot of people's imagination what she did that day. Yeah.
So Tony Sandick got up for the presentation, got up on the dais and said, "We're retiring her." You're saying you knew that was going to be the case. Yeah. What's the feeling, though, when it's officially said, this is it? Is it a feeling of relief, of gratitude that you've experienced that, or is that bit of sadness that I'm not getting this again?
No sadness at all. Relief and gratitude was all I felt. At this point, I'm so in love with this animal. She is everything to me. She changed my life. She took me on this incredible journey. So she is now very personal to me. So for me to watch an athlete at the peak of her powers retire at that moment, it's the most respectful thing that we could have ever done. Yeah, listen, we could have went another autumn, and she had one joint which we were monitoring. It wasn't a problem, but it was there. She could run through pain, but the most respectful thing that we could have done for her was to say that, listen, what more could you ask? Like, we asked her to run through brick walls and she ran through brick walls and then said, okay, what do you want me to do next? We asked her to do some ridiculous things and she did it with ease. So what more could we ask? You know, a Cox Plate, 3 Melbourne Cups. She beat Grand Army who was absolutely airborne in a BMW in Sydney. She holds a record which will stand the test of time. She broke Northie's record over 2,000 metres in the Australian Cup. That record, they're not getting close to it. It might stand the test of time. She beat proper horses all the time. Now, that's why I call her a champion, because she beat some champions and she broke records. You know, I respect all other horses and I don't compare, but she was proper, crazy proper.
I know that time in your life will always be best remembered for Makybe Diva, but around that time too, you also had horses like Racing to Win, Fastnet Rock, so many superstars, leading Group 1, jockeying the country from 03 to 06.
Yeah.
Was that peak Bossy?
Oh yeah, like I'm in my mid-30s, right? And I'm at the peak of my game, and so confident in my abilities, and worked hard. I was working harder than everyone else at that time, writing for Gay and these sort of people, you're asked to work hard. You do these things and then you're on the next mission. You as an athlete, you always, no rear vision mirror. You're looking forward all the time. And I was at the peak of my powers then. I'm not in the league of James McDonald or these people, but I was riding 10 Group 1, every year I was riding 10 Group 1s. I couldn't win a premiership because I never was interested in winning premierships. Never bothered me. Because I would always have my breaks after, because I would put so much effort mentally and physically into a spring and autumn and a winter that I would be mentally tired. So I needed 2 to 3 weeks off after a big one, and that's just the way I was. I was at the peak of my powers then. Ridiculously, I felt like I was very good at my job, you know what I mean? I was very good at targeting horses. I could see in a horse 6 months earlier than I could see what it was there and what it could be. I was always targeting horses and I was getting good at it, yeah.
Said before, Makybe, you hadn't ridden a champion and you get her.
Mm-hmm.
A few years later, you can't say you think in that champion category?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I've ridden some champion 2-year-olds, champion 3-year-olds, but when you talk about, and it's a loose word, Ed, it's a loose word, and I think that's disrespectful to horses like Makybe, Winxes, and that, to call horses champions. You know what I mean? People are very loose with that word. They call some jockeys champion jockeys. No, they're not champions yet. You've got to ride against the best. You've got to have longevity in the game. They've got to beat other champions. They've got to win good races, and they've got to do it for quite a while. Different distances, different levels, different tracks, wet, dry. They've got to be able to do it all, champions. So I remember Bart rang me and he said, Bossy, I've got a colt here and I think it might be the best horse I've ever trained. And I went, Bart, you have me at a hello. I'm listening to Bart, and I know Bart. I've ridden a lot of Group 1 winners for Bart and worked with him very closely. So I know Bart very well. And he said, mate, I've got this 3-year-old colt. I want you to ride him the Cox Plate. And I said, mate, there's no way I'm not riding him after what you just said. Anyway, funny thing, he said it was first time with blinkers, right? Because he was missing the start and doing a lot wrong. So he said, I want you at Flemington to do a jump out on the whatever day, maybe the Friday before the Cox Plate or the Tuesday or whatever it was. I can't remember the day. Anyway, he said, the only thing I want you to do is go make him jump. I don't want you to be involved in the trial, but jump and go 100 metres and then pull him up. Try and, ease him out of the trial. But all you're doing is jump, making him jump. This horse is magnificent. And I've ridden some of the best colts. Schnitzel. Like you can talk about the top 20 colts in Australia and I've ridden 12 of them. I'm talking the best. This colt come out and I went, wow, have a look at you. This is Brad Pitt on four legs. I got him in trial. In the trial, he just jumped brilliantly and he went very aggressive. And I'm trying to pull him out of the trial, Eddie, and when I locked him down, he started making this horrific noise. So I'd cut his wind off by trying to pull him out of the trial. But it sounded like he was inside a 44 bell, all this noise, right? And I thought, I won't be doing that because he's quite an aggressive, strong colt. So I finished the trial and he jumped, did everything what Bart wanted, but I kept this in my mind. I said, I can't do that race day. If he wants to go, the last thing I'm going to do is try and choke him, pull him back because I know that I'm going to cut his wind off. So we get there, Cox Plate Day. He's a juvenile. He parades a bit strong with the noise. So I kept him way down the bottom. I kept him down near the sort of away from the barriers from as long as I could to keep him calm. We got in the barriers and I could feel this monster underneath me. And he jumped and his first thing was to, if anyone sees that Cox Plate, his first 3 strides, he went like that with me. So I just went, oh, okay. I just threw the reins at him. And the best part was he never did Breakfast of Stars. He'd never been to Moonee Valley. So, Ed, what I did, I just let him have his moment. I said, okay, I'm going with you. And he led and I let him go around the turn. He was 4 wide and then he got towards the mile and he's leading at this point. What happened from this point onwards, Ed, he had complete control of me, right? So I'm just, okay, you do your thing. As soon as I got to the mile and towards the 1,500 metre mark, blinkers on, going downhill, he went, where am I going? He lost control. So all of a sudden I had control because he's going, okay, where do I go? Where do I go? So he completely dropped the bridle and come back to me because I now had control. He didn't know where to go. So he just completely dropped the bridle and relaxed underneath me. And we just sort of had about 4 furlongs where it was pretty sedate because I got control now. I got to the 400 and I lit him up because I wanted to try and win the race. So I had 49 kilos. I wanted to try and win the race on the bend and then hang on for my life. You know what I mean? That was my plan. Mate, I lit the wick and he broke 10 uphill going around a corner and he just dropped him, and then he continued that gallop. I mean, his last quarter was a bit slower, obviously, but because they can't sustain 10-10, right? But he won by 4 or 5, I think 4. And he announced himself to the world, right? That especially Australia, this is some colt. Bart, I come back. I'd never seen Bart cry, ever. He was really welled up, shaking and, because this is the best horse. He told me he's the best horse I've trained. So this was a special colt, and he won a Cox Plate, beat some good horses by 4, wow, this is some horse. And, so he was the only other champion under race conditions I rode. I rode Black Caviar in a gallop one day.
Did you know it was Black Caviar though?
No, I didn't know at the time, but and that was a joke. I think your dad was in on it too, They got me that day at Caulfield. Pete, just to get off the subject there, I was to ride her in the Manicato. She had 51 kilos. And Luke can't ride 51. Yeah. So I didn't know. So this is a week before the Manicato or 10 days before and whatever it was. And I did a course proper gallop on Black Caviar and I would have maxed out doing 70-something kilometres an hour, 70 maybe 5. Fastest I've ever been on a horse. Just sheer raw power. She's a weapon, right? And I trotted back thinking I found a champion. This is a champion. And buddy Pete said, I said, mate, what what is this, mate? This is, he said, do you think it win a maiden? And I went, now he's telling me it's a maidener? So they're all on the joke, right?
That Caulfield banter was terrific.
Mate, the Caulfield hut is probably it's the best hut I've ever been in. And your dad was part of it. You know, they've taken the piss out of me and I'm driving Pete mad all morning. Where's this mare going? What is it? You know, he didn't tell me a name. Its name was Nellie. Okay, who's Nellie? Fucking, I'm thinking, I'm keeping this quiet. I'm trying to treat this away from Luke of all people because he's stable rider. And I found a champion. Anyway, I got in the hut. You know, when you go up and do the reports and they're all standing there waiting to turn in. Pete says, it's Black Caviar, you idiot. And I'm going, I never got to ride her because she tore a petrol muscle or something after the gallop and I never got to ride her. But, yeah, that was the only other champion I rode that, but not under race conditions, yeah.
You've achieved so much in Australia, Bossy. You head to Singapore for a few years in 2016. Why was that the case?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really weird time for me. I was being very successful in Melbourne. I won the premiership, won the Cox Plates and all that sort of stuff. And it was really weird. The year after I won all that stuff and won the premiership, the year after I struggled to get any traction in Melbourne. I don't know why. People would sort of turn their back on me a bit and I couldn't get rides. And I was going to Sandown with one ride, and races. It was just horrible. And I got very despondent. I got very despondent with the sport. And probably a bit angry, I would say. Thought I'd had enough respect in this game that people would still respect me. But, I'm later to learn that's part of the sport. And so I thought, I was talking to Johnny Powell and we're talking, he said, what about Singapore? Come over and have a test out. I said, yeah, why not? So I thought I'd go for a little bit of a spurt. I ended up staying there 3 years, And it was basically a holiday. I was playing golf with JP 3 days a week, riding twice a week. I was on my own a lot. But that after getting into third year, that was all starting to unravel for me. I was drinking a lot because I was on my own. I was just leaning myself to that. I was just getting on the piss, playing golf. It was like a holiday. So my riding was starting to, I was being very successful over there. I rode 6 Group 1 winners over there. But the last sort of part of that 3 years, I was not interested in riding. I was not wanting to go to the track. I was just turning into a fucking alcoholic, just drinking and fucking partying, So I had to get out of there because it was just, I was going down into a bad place. So I had to get out of there. So I thought, I'll go back to Brisbane. My marriage was failing. Everything was failing. So I'll go back to Brisbane. I thought, I'll stay there for a while and just ride out my career and whatever. Nash Reel rang me and said, what are you doing? I've got this bloke called Liam Pryor, who I knew of. He was second in charge. He's basically helped running Chris Waller's stable. So respected. And he said, I'm going to take him on as my agent, but to get him over the line, would you come to Sydney and he will be your agent as well? So I rang Liam and he convinced me like that. So he said, what are you doing in Brisbane? You're wasting your time. You're too good for this. It's sad to watch you. It's sad. He bluntly said to me, what the f*** are you doing? Get to Sydney and let's work and let's get it done. So I go, okay, I go to Sydney. Very daunting, scared, didn't know how I was going to be received, but worked hard. It worked very hard when I got there. And anyway, I remember it was a turning point. I rode one in a trial while I was working hard, and I was going to Goulburn riding to try and get myself going. I rode one in a trial, a mare called something like that. One for Singo, and I rode it in the trial, and it was going to a stakes race. And it trolled really good. And I said, mate, this will win this. I rang Liam. It's going to win. This will win the stakes race. Anyway, Chris was going to put someone else on. I rang Chris, pleaded, please give me this ride. Please give me this ride. It will win. It will. And he said, mate, so anyway, I rode it and it won. So then it kind of broke the ice for me, with Chris. And it got me going again. So then I started to get going again and I started to ride winners and I was riding a bit for Chris and and I rode it. I watched a horse that Huey Bowman rode in a Group 1 race, and it was going towards Epsom. And it got beat in the Group 1, but it was a run that not many people have seen. I said, this horse called Colding.
Mm-hmm.
I rang out Chris and I said, that will win the Epsom. And he said, do you think? I said, mate, it will win the Epsom. Can I please ride it? He said, and it was in a hot race. Anyway, I rode it. It won the Epsom. And now I'm starting, getting a bit of respect. Things are happening. It goes, and then he said, obviously the Everest is coming up. And Liam Pryor was part of the syndicate. They had the slot, and with Coolmore and that, and they were to and fro on what they do. And anyway, this horse called Yes, Yes, Yes was touted to go into the. Anyway, it got beaten in the Golden Rose.
Mm.
Anyway, they put it into the Everest, and they asked me. They said, "Can you ride it?" I said, "Yep." Anyway, we put blinkers on him the week before, and because there was a race meeting on Wednesday, 10 days before the Everest at Randwick, and Chris at his height of his powers, brilliant person. He said, "What we're going to do? Take him to the races. We're going to put blinkers on him, and we're going to parade him because can be a bit hot, and we're going to go out on the track, and we're just going to give him a canter. Like you come up and do 38, but it's all more about the experience in the enclosure there." Brilliant. So I go out there. He parades very well. He did everything. He's in control of his moods and his temperament. I go out there and do a sedate gallop. I come up in about 37, and I get off and I said, "Chris, this will win the Everest." I even told Lizzie Jeffs in an interview, I said, "This will win the Everest." Chris is like, "Mate, seriously?" I said, "Mate, this will win the Everest." Comes out, wins the Everest. You know what I mean? A week after, I trial Colding again. Get off. This will win the Golden Eagle. This will win the Golden Eagle. Comes out, wins the Golden Eagle. So I'm back in my zone. I'm back in my place again. I'm sort of doing what I was doing when I was a 35-year-old, and my horses won, I think, 25 million that year. I was supposed to get on COVID. I was very close to the Aussie Kerr group. I was part of the plan that they bought Incentivise. Have a look at this horse. His ratings were through the roof. They bought him. I wanted to ride him in the Caulfield Cup. So we devised a plan with some very high-profile people in Victoria, which I won't mention. So I was going to go to Darwin, quarantine, to get to Victoria to ride Incentivise in the Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup that year. People are not shifting around, right? You know that.
So 17 days to get back from Hong Kong to Melbourne, Bossy. They were the times were
so people were not moving around from state to state, and you needed a legitimate thing to do it. And so what happened in that? So I go to Darwin, and one of the owners inadvertently knew that I was coming down and said something. So that one of the press guys got hold of it, and he rang me while I'm going to Darwin, and this is all COVID. Like when I'm talking COVID, this is all this is not to be spoken about, right? Me go there and I'm getting to Victoria. I'm a resident of Victoria, but I've got some very big people help me. So this is all hush hush. Anyway, he got hold of the story and he rang me and I said, "Mate, please do not write anything. Please. I'll give you the story when I get to Victoria and you can have the whole lot." Fuck me. He wrote a story. So I get to Darwin. There's coppers there waiting for me. Press. What I mean? I get to the quarantine centre. I'm there one day. Two big burly coppers come around and they said, "You are to leave. The Minister for Health in the Northern Territory doesn't want you here." So I had to leave. Now listen, Ed, I'd got all my horses in Sydney. I'm talking about some proper horses. I got off them all. They'd all gone to other jockeys because I'm going to Victoria. I'd packed up my house where I was living. All the furniture had already gone. So I'm in quarantine in Darwin and I have to return to Sydney. I can't go to anywhere else. They said, "You have to return." So I go back to Sydney. Now I'm living in Sloane. We're in a hotel room I have nothing. Everything's gone. Clothes, everything, other than what we had. I have no horses to ride. So I'm scratching around and I'm now, and this is incentivized goes and wins everything, you know, and I'll never forgive that particular press person. I hope I hope he rots and doesn't sleep very well. So anyway, but you know, my journey still wasn't finished. You know, I got down to Victoria eventually the year after and won another Cox Plate through quarantine, and what was that year? I think, wasn't it?
Sir Dragonet.
Yeah, we eventually at the end of the spring we could move. You know, under monitored circumstances. So I'd already missed the Caulfield Cup and incentivised and whatnot, and picked up the ride on incentive on Sir Dragonet and won the Cox Plate, you know. So, but then honestly, Ed, at the end of that, because what happened, my plan was to win the Cox. I knew this horse would win the Caulfield Cup. I just knew it. His ratings, all the ratings said he will win, and not by a small margin. He'll win by a good margin. So my plan was I was going to win the Caulfield Cup. Then I had the set, and then I was going to retire.
Yeah,
I was going to announce my retirement, and then I've done everything. So I never got to do that. I won a Cox Plate, won my fourth. But listen, Ed, I knew my riding career was coming to an end. I knew it was coming to an end. You know, so then the wheels started turning to retire.
The jockeys, when they're retiring, there's a number of different avenues, whether it's becoming a trainer, whether it's going down the bloodstock path, whether it's getting into media. Why did you go down the path that you've gone down now?
I felt very comfortable doing it. I'm a good guest speaker. I feel very comfortable in front of a lot of people. I know instinctively, I know this game very well. And I just want to tell people stories. You know what I mean? You know, my journey, the stories, the ups and downs of being an athlete. I felt like, and to be very honest, Ed, to walk away from an industry that has actually provided me with everything. From an uneducated kid that quit school of grade 10, I got to travel the world. You know, I got to do some things that people would never do. And it was only because of the racing industry. That it provided that. It put my kids through an amazing education and to give them a great start in life. I got to travel around the world. I got to drive fast cars. I got to, you know, do it all, right? And the only thing that provided that for me was the racing industry. So to walk away from it would be so disrespectful. Give back in whatever way, shape or form that is, but give something back. So I thought, well, the media, give it back that way and try and promote our sport in a very good light, like I'd always done. So that's now my journey, you know.
How do you find going as a commentator talking about other jockeys? Because these are blokes that you've shared ladies that you've shared the jockeys room with. You've got that camaraderie. You've also got an opinion that you want to share with people watching, listening at home.
Yeah, I'm in awe of the talent that we see these days. You know, I was never a good jockey, Ed. I would never put myself in the top 20, but I was a great horseman. I understood the animals and I could do that. That was my genre. And that's what helped me do what I did. But I look at these young people now, the Huey Bowmans, the James McDonalds, you know, the elites, you know, like even look at Kieran McAvoy, and I could never be that good. Jamie Carr, just watching her do her thing at the moment. Ben Mellon, there's no, you know, these, listen, I'm not going to, I could name 20 and miss out other people because I don't want to disrespect, but when I see the elite ones like now, I look at James McDonald. He is without doubt the best jockey I've ever seen. And I've seen some greats, but he is the new benchmark. He is now the new ceiling that everyone has to try and be. Blake Shin is close. He's another one I adore, and I just have so much respect for Blake Shin. Blake Shin and him, I think, are the two. And that's not being disrespectful to everyone else, Mark Zara and all that, you know. But these two, I think, are elite, and these two are now the benchmark. Because I think Blake Shin is nowhere near his best yet. He has still got a long way to go. James McDonald, he just got so much talent.
Can he improve then? If he's still relatively young, Bossy?
Mate, he can improve. Oh, don't worry. He wants to improve too. Don't worry about that. He's not finished. he still gets down on himself when you can see him. I seen him at Breakfast of the Stars yesterday, and I can see he's a little bit, because his form's a bit down. Like he's not, I wouldn't say his form's down. He's just not riding winners at the moment. It's just, that's sport. But I rang him and said, give me a call. I sent him a message, give me a call. And he rang me back. I said, mate, are you okay? You look really agitated this morning. And he said, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. But I can tell that that's just the athlete in him, and he feels it and he wants to, you know what I mean? But it's like, I just love that in athletes. I love that they just are not willing to just sit on their hands and say, well, look what I've done. They want to improve every day that they're out there. And he's one of those guys. He's different. And so's Blake. They're different. That's what makes them different, I suppose, to every other. That's what separates the great ones from the very good. They're just a bit different.
I could talk to you all day, Bossy, because you're such a fascinating man. You've done so much in your career. Want to talk, to wrap things up, though, when you reflect on your career, how much pride do you get? How do you reflect on it? What do you want people like myself or others to say, Glen Boss was this when he was a jockey?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I was, throughout my career, I extracted a lot out of my. I think for a bloke that didn't have a lot of ability as a jockey, I think I extracted a lot out of myself just through knowing what I was good at, and working hard on what I was good at. I never stopped trying to learn. I never stopped trying to improve myself the whole way, even to the last day when I rode work. I was still counting my furlongs, still doing that, I think, I think I just want people to think that, I was good to the game. I think I was, I did everything positive in this game to people. I just wanted people to respect me for what I did in the game. You don't have to respect the person. You can dislike me for whatever it is, but respect what I done in the game. That's a cool thing, You don't have to like me, just respect me. That's it.
And a final one, you're in your mid-50s, but you're looking good, Bossy, you're healthy. What would you like to do in life, in your career, before you do get older like we all do?
Listen, gee, that's another good question. Just be happy, be at peace, help. I love helping young riders. Like I'm not a mentor I don't get paid for it, but anyone who rings me, I'm quite involved with young men and women, because women are a massive part of our riding sport now. So there's a lot of young girls I'm helping. They'll give me a call, and young boys. I'll talk to Blake Shin, calls me all the time, and Tommy Berry, and I'll talk to J-Mac, about things. But I just want to be that person that if they're struggling with something, just give me a call, because I'm always there, and I might not give you the right answer, but I'll try and give you the right answer, But just trying to be at peace with myself, I suppose, knowing that I think I've done okay. That's about it, really.
Bossy, it's been a pleasure having a chat. Thanks for coming on Saddler Sessions. We'll see you at the races over the spring.
I will look forward to seeing you at the races, buddy. Good on you, Ed. Good on you, brother.
Thanks, Bossy.
Thanks, mate.